Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 64 of the podcast. My name is Rick DeWeese. I will be your host this week. This week is a special week. Why is it special? Because this episode, which goes out on a Thursday, is going out on a very special Thursday. This episode is going out on none other than Thanksgiving 2014. And there's a lot that I have to be thankful for. First off, thank you for sharing your journeys within the wet shaving world with me. Thank you for allowing me to share my journey with you. It has been exciting. It has been a little bit over a year that I've been doing this podcast, and it is an absolute joy and adventure each and every week. It really is. I thoroughly look forward to it. I enjoy sitting here pondering what I'm going to talk about, laying stuff in front of me and going, oh yeah. And then one of the most fabulous thing is opening up the letters and looking at the letters that people have sent me and the thoughts and comments and just things that those letters inspire. And so thank you very, very much for that. Now, this week's show, we've got some letters. I'm going to talk to you about Latosha soap. It is a Spanish soap. It's a cream, actually, that I have been using this week. So I'll talk about that. Last week, I talked to you about stropping my straight razors and the fact that I was using my old strop. Well, I'm using my new strop. I forced myself to do that. I'll tell you how. And I've noticed something on my razors. And, well, that's raised another conundrum. So we'll talk about that too. I'm finally able to announce, and so I am going to make that announcement here in the middle of the show, how you can support the Brush and Soap and Blade podcast. I have teamed up with an absolute artisan, a wonderful artisan, and we have something that we are making available that I think is a win for everybody. If you decide to participate, you will walk away with something that is exceedingly beautiful and exceedingly useful. And a little bit of the proceeds from the sale go to the Brush and Soap and Blade podcast, and the rest of it goes to an absolutely fabulous artisan. I'll tell you about it. Not yet. You're going to have to wait until, about the middle of the show. Finally, I've got a couple of people now have asked me questions about how I podcast. Now, back in the first episodes, I kind of laid some of the stuff out, especially as I got new equipment. It was like, ooh, yeah, exciting, new thing, squirrel. But I've never put it all together kind of in one show. So I'll talk a little bit about how I podcast, some of the difficulties that I had, some of the things that I've run into, and how I do what I do. Now, I'm not going to do this very often because, well, this is a shaving podcast. This is not a podcast. There are plenty of those out there. But I have had some people specifically ask me how I go about doing this, so I figured I'd go ahead and share that with you, and just this one time. So I'll go ahead and throw that in there. Again, it is Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving is a wonderful, wonderful time. There's history, there's tradition. If nothing else, most everybody typically has the day off, unless, of course, you're in retail, in which case I know I've been there. I'm sorry. Try to bear with it, and we appreciate you being out there. We really, really do, because, well, somebody has to. And, you guys that are doing that, you're in my hearts, because, like I said, I've been there. But the rest of us, when we get a chance to sit down with friends and families on Thanksgiving and this Thanksgiving weekend, enjoy it. Really enjoy it, because the people that you surround yourself with are more important than anything else. You know, we talk about shaving, we talk about politics, we talk about this, we talk about that. There is absolutely nothing more important than friends and family that may or may not be sitting around your table this Thanksgiving. Keep that in the forefront of your mind and enjoy those people that you have dealings with. And anyhow, enough of that. I'm getting melancholy all of a sudden. I do that on Thanksgiving. Anyhow, let's get on with this show. I got a letter from Caleb. Hello, Rick. My name is Caleb, and I am a 24-year-old male living in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I've been following you on Instagram for a while, and just yesterday decided to visit your blog. Today I was working by myself a lot. I'm a carpenter by trade, and decided to give your podcast a go. You definitely helped my day go by faster, as I am sure I would have been losing my mind by the end of the day. Your commentary on all things shaving is insightful, in the very least due to your personality, which I feel is what some podcasts should reflect more. Not only that, but there were times when you would pause to reflect on something, and as you started to say something, I began saying the same thing at the exact same time. Perhaps we are kindred spirits. Perhaps we're not. I have recently started my own blog on WordPress, and I am wondering what tips you have on making the site more appealing. It is my first time using this blog generator, so I am kind of new at this thing. I have another blog, non-shaving related, on Blogger, and for whatever reason, unbeknownst to me, I decided to have a completely different blog on a completely different site. After listening to 4 of your podcasts today, I feel like it is something that I want to do, weekly, just like yourself. I feel like it is something I could have fun with. What kind of microphone do you use? Do you just record your podcast onto your computer? How do you get podcasts into iTunes? I plan on making a YouTube channel as well, in the same vein as Nick Shaves, and do lather and shave reviews as well as other random things. I hope that you have the time to read and respond to this. God bless your fellow wet shaver, Caleb, a.k.a. the Edmonton Shaver. And you can find his blog at www.edmontonshaver, all one word, .wordpress.com, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Okay, Caleb. First off, a lot of questions. Now, I did go and take a look at Caleb's blog, and I did send him some ideas, at least some of the things that I thought of while I was looking at it, based on my own experience, what I would have done. Things like creating kind of a brand, if you will, a brand picture or something like that, to try to give you something to center around, especially if you're then going to go to YouTube or podcasting or something like that. You know, kind of have a central theme, if you will. You know, for me, my brand image, if you will, is my lather bowl with a little bit of soap coming down the side of it, with a white brush handle showing, and a Gillette Fat Boy. And that's kind of my branding image. It's on everything that I have. And I started off with that, and that's just, you know, kind of what I've left it at, and I have no intention of changing it. It's just one of those things that when people see it, hopefully they can recognize that, yes, in fact, that's me. So I did respond to him in that. Now, as far as podcasting, that's an interesting thing, and what I'll do is I'm going to do that as the last segment today, and talk to you a little bit about the evolution of this podcast, where we've been, what equipment we've used, how I do it, what I would do differently if I had to do it over again, and all those kind of things, because there's been a couple of people that have asked me, and so I figured, well, I haven't done a show on that in a while. I think I'll throw one in instead of a rant, and we'll go that route. So, Caleb, stay tuned. I'll let you know here in a couple of minutes. I also got a letter from Darren. He's the proprietor of Wickham Soap Company. He said, Rick, I was just going through all my lists of contacts to let people know that I have had a packaging redesign and brand makeover. And he said, I noticed your artisan links on Brush and Soap and Blade website. You're showing the old packaging. Well, that's recently been updated. Thanks to Darren, he sent me the new label, the new design, which is really cool. I really like it. And so I went ahead and put it up there. So if you look at my links and see something different, well, that's it. The Wickham Soap Company link picture, brand, image has changed. So good stuff. And Darren, hope you're doing well out there. Wickham soaps are getting all over the place, and that's good stuff because they're good soaps. I also got a comment over on my YouTube channel for episode 60, The Demise of Men. And this comment comes from Thomas. Good show. First-time listener here. The title caught my attention because it is actually part of a conversation I had with a couple of other guys just yesterday. I have some thoughts on the subject that I would like to share that explains why I believe it is at least partially true. Number one, in dealing with boys of all ages, I found that manners, which is part of being a man and a gentleman, are many times not taught at home anymore, and much of what they learn, if any, is learned while at school. Number two, many fathers today do not take the time or initiative to teach or talk to their boys about manly things, such as how to use a knife, how to urinate in a toilet without making a huge mess, how to build a fire, etc. Number three, compared to shops that cater to women, how many cater to men? While I will say that it has gotten a little bit better over the past few years, the percentages are way out of proportion. 4. It seems that finding men's underwear in classic design are going the way of the dinosaur. In many cases, they are being turned into unisex fits with a noticeable lack of a front fly. 5. It seems that many of the products for men, those you would find in a drugstore, Walmart, etc., smell more and more feminine, almost perfume-like. 6. Schools used to teach civics, and it has been watered down with social studies, with a short bit in history class and 1 year of government. A social experiment was done a while back where questions like, on Independence Day, who are we celebrating independence from? And many had no clue. They weren't overly difficult questions at all. From years past, people, especially men, paid more attention to what laws were being passed and knew when and how to talk to their senators, congressmen, and such. Now, most people do not have the time nor inclination to care, except for when it personally affects them in many cases. Some even because it would interrupt their TV time. 7. You, I, and your other listeners may choose to turn off the garbage box, but many do not. There is not a single media outlet that doesn't in some way enhance chest through post-editing, remove the wrinkles and blemishes, etc. People find themselves buying things because they inundated with messages that say, you aren't cool if you don't have this product, or this is the only product that will make you handsome. So many people have low self-esteem, and it is really sad. 7.5. While one could say that do-it-yourself is not dead, YouTube is a prime example of this. At the same time, it would be questioned as to whether YouTube would be as popular if do-it-yourself was taught at home. My points above are directed at males to align with the subject of the demise of men. But it can equally be directed toward women, too. I think it is great that you are smart enough to not listen to the radio and TV, and that you are proactive in teaching boys how to do things that will come in handy, and moreover, sharing information on shaving. I can't say with certainty that there will be a demise of men, but I can say if current trends continue, it doesn't look too good. On a plus note, though, if the few like you, myself, and other listeners continue to teach the manly ways, there may still be hope. After all, history has proven that it is not the words and deeds of one man, or of many men, that change history. It is the few. Well, first off, Thomas, great comment, lengthy comment. Took him a while to write that, and good stuff in there. Okay, so let's take this point by point. All right. Manners not being taught at home. Well, you're absolutely right. Manners, for the most part, are not taught at home in most places. I do happen to know that here, where I live in South Carolina, manners are, for the most part, taught at home and in church and in school and just about everywhere. And manners, basic manners, are insisted upon. If a young man makes the mistake of not saying yes, sir, the person that they are talking to will almost instinctively say yes, sir, to them just to remind them, and it's the same with girls. So I'm a little insulated on that part. I know exactly what you mean. It's nowhere near what it used to be, and in fact, manners used to be taught in school. And it's not that way anymore at all. I mean, it's very marginal at best, and the lack of manners and civility, if you will, is hurting, well, everyone. Okay, number 2, fathers that don't take the time or initiative to teach or talk to their boys about manly things. You're absolutely right, and part of it, and I know I'm going to make some females mad about this, but a lot of it is due to the fact that, well, the things that are considered manly are sometimes dangerous, or at least perceived as dangerous. Fire is dangerous. Using sharp things is dangerous. Cutting with things with an axe or with a knife, well, you could hurt yourself. Shooting a BB gun, well, you could put your eye out. Those kind of things. And women have a tendency to want to protect their children. And unfortunately, in doing so, in a lot of cases, what they're doing is preventing their young boys from learning the things that they will need to become young men. And it's sad, really, because it's being done with the best of intentions. The problem is that they have it in their head through a myriad of sources, whether those be TV, radio, or whatever, that their job is to, well, protect. And that by protecting, that means, if your kid gets wet because they're out in the rain, you need to do something about that. Why? They'll come in when they get cold. It's okay. Yeah, we used to do that, cutting yourself with a knife. Oh my gosh, you can't have a sharp thing. Well, yeah, and you're probably going to cut yourself, and it'll probably be okay, and you may have a scar, and you'll live. It'll be okay. But, when you think about it from that perspective, if your overriding goal is to protect from all harm, it becomes exceedingly difficult to understand how the individual in question is going to learn how to do things like, well, start a fire without getting burned. Learn how to use a knife without getting cut. Use a hammer and nail without smashing your finger. Use an axe without smacking yourself in the leg every now and then. Using tools without scraping and skinning knuckles. When you look at all the things that we do that are considered quote unquote manly, almost all of them have, at some time or another, the preponderance to, cause some type of injury. And if the underlying goal is to prevent injury from occurring, I'm sorry, that's not how you learn. When you put up that roadblock, you've just eliminated the ability to learn. Even doing something as simple as raising animals, a hamster's bite. Chickens scratch, rabbits bite. I mean, it's one of these things where no matter what you do, if you do something that, again, is what would be stereotypical manly, you're going to go out there and you're probably going to hurt yourself a couple of times before you figure out how to do it. And that's one of the things is that, either people don't want us to get hurt or we ourselves have it in our mind that, well, we can't get hurt. And so we don't do. How many people have not done anything with electricity because they don't want to get shocked? I understand that, but at the same time, it keeps us from learning. So that's enough of a rant about that. Okay. As far as shops that cater to men, there is, while I'm not going to necessarily disagree with you, I will say this. When women shop, they go all over the place. At least I've noticed my wife doing this. She'll go all over the place to, 10 different stores. When I go shopping, I know what I want. I walk into one or maybe two stores, get what I want, pay for it, and leave. Very rarely, except when I'm, in the tool department or, Northern Hydraulic or something like that, will I, quote unquote, shop. It's a different phenomenon. So I understand why there's more stores for women, but I will admit that the stores for men that are out there really, they're not the kind of things that we really want. I mean, other than the gun shop or something like that, those are nice places. I enjoy those. But if there was a place that had nothing but, good tools and knives, woodworking places, woodcraft or something, those are interesting places for guys. So it's a little bit different. It's kind of strange. Now, number 4, the demise, if you will, of men's underwear. Yeah, I noticed that a while ago too. It's kind of interesting. They're the tried and trues, but they always try to sell you, you're right, these unisex things, these simple to make bikini brief type things or whatever, and it is interesting. On the civics note, yes, they used to teach civics. They used to teach, who are your congressmen and your senators and your legislators and your governor and the local folks and all that. They used to teach the systems of government to the point where you actually understood and you would go and visit your mayor or whatever. They don't do that anymore. They gloss over it. Now, we do it in Scouts, so all of the boys that I deal with, they understand that because that's one of the things that we do. Those are, for us, those are Eagle required merit badges. Citizenship in the community, citizenship in the nation, and then citizenship in the world, where we cover exactly those things. Who are the people in charge? How do you communicate with them? How do you touch base? How do you find out what's going on? So, yeah, but I do understand greatly, and it's sad. We talk about, Independence Day and where we came from and how we got here. And in a lot of cases, yeah, the kids nowadays, they don't know that. And even when they do know it, it's not like it means a whole lot to them because they're given the facts, but they're not given the knowledge. They're not given the tribal knowledge that is passed down as to where we came from and why it's important. They're given the facts, so that they can pass the test, and that's about it. And it's really kind of sad. It really is. Now, as far as 7, which is not watching TV, or if you do, being inundated, absolutely inundated with marketing to tell you that you need to feel this way and you need to look that way and you have to have this product for your hair and this product for your skin and you have to use this razor because it will give you a close shave, and even though it's, a Dyson vacuum cleaner, with blades, it's everywhere, and it is everywhere. It's almost like you're in a cesspool trying to swim from one side of the day to the next. And lo and behold, you have to just the chunks that are floating are this this marketing crap literally floating around in this cesspool that you're swimming through, that is telling you and whispering things in your ear. You have to look this way, and you have to go and lift weights, and you have to have a six-pack, and you have to have big biceps and bulging veins and full head of hair, because oh my God, if you're bald, that's not manly. Oh, come on, really? Do you not understand? Most people do not understand that male pattern baldness comes from a huge amount of testosterone in the body. So if anything, being bald is actually more manly. It's all marketing. It is absolute insanity. And it's all designed to do one thing, and that is separate us from our money. It's kind of like the government. It's the same thing. They just want to separate us from our money. Because, well, it's really theirs, right? At least if you ask them, they'll tell you that. Now, as far as YouTube, yeah, it's really interesting, Back in the day, I'll tell you a story about myself. Back in the day, I guess I was about 12 or 13 when I discovered the library. Now, the library where I grew up was huge. It was absolutely ginormous, and I used to ride my bike over there, or I'd walk, and I would spend all afternoon in the library. Now, when it first started out, I was, getting into kids' books and looking at this, looking at that, and then I found the section that was all engineering and science and stuff like that. And that's when I started spending afternoons there. Now, one of the things that they had was they had hardbound editions of every Mechanics Illustrated, Popular Mechanics, and Popular Science magazine all the way back from the beginning. Now, this would have been in the 70s, so they had, 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. I mean, they had volumes, absolute volumes of these things. And I would go up there and I would sit for hours paging through old Mechanics Illustrated, Popular Science, and Popular Mechanics magazines. They had them so far back that when you open the magazines, the advertisements were in the front. It was, they changed that sometime. I can't remember. It was sometime in the 60s. But the ads used to be in the front. It was really kind of neat. But when I think about it, those Popular Mechanics magazines was the YouTube of my generation. That's how we shared information of a technical nature, of a gadget nature, of a gizmo nature. This was where all the neat things were being made and created, and that's where I learned about things like, cutting tools and lathes and making things and mechanisms and stuff like that. It was in Popular Mechanics magazines. Now, the generation that is coming up now, they go to YouTube, and it's interesting. But when you say that YouTube is a prime example that do-it-yourself isn't being taught at home, I may have to disagree with you there, because a lot of people subscribe to Popular Mechanics because that was their version of YouTube, and that was how they found out, how to do things. Now, the difference, there is one significant difference, is that nowadays what happens is people watch it on YouTube, and it almost takes the place of actually doing it. Whereas back then, people would look at the pictures and read the magazine articles, and then they would go and try it themselves. And so it's almost like the visual is replacing the actual. So there is a difference there, and it's kind of scary, because usually when I watch a YouTube video, I'll go out and try something. You know, I'm kind of that way. But a lot of people, they see it on TV and, well, that's good enough. They've experienced it. They've done it visually, and so, well, that's enough. So it is interesting. First off, great comment. Oh my gosh, great comment. A lot of good thoughts in there. I mean, really a lot of good thoughts. And so yeah, I think there's hope, but there are things that we have to watch out for. First off, don't let your children or young people that you know succumb to the marketing game. Teach them early that that is what it is, that they are, they're being subjected to marketing, and marketing is to do a couple of things. It is to make you feel bad about yourself until you buy a product so you can feel good, and it's also to separate you from your money in one shape, way, or form. And marketing is not necessarily to your benefit, it's to, well, somebody else's benefit. And that's why they will sit there and market to you in various ways that, well, you need to be thin, and, you need to work out, and, you shouldn't be this size of a person. You should be, well, this size, and you shouldn't have brunette hair. You should be a blonde because, well, blondes have more fun. No, they don't. It's just it's all marketing. It's all somebody's opinion to try to convince you that they know better than you do. And, it's just marketing. And quite honestly, we need to enlighten and educate both ourselves and our, the people around us within our sphere of influence to understand that marketing is in fact just that. And if we can get them to understand from a basic level that marketing is just that, then all of a sudden you start getting into the realm of, well, what really is politics other than marketing? Just because something happens, does that mean we have to have a law, or is that just marketing to make somebody look like they're actually doing something when in fact they really never do anything? Except come in and say, ooh, I'll try to do this if you elect me, and then when you elect them, they do, well, nothing. And then they come back, and they always have an excuse, and it's marketing. It's absolutely all marketing. And marketing hits us in so many ways, shapes, or forms that it's incredible. It's scary, but incredible. So that would be my suggestion is, look around the people that you interact with, your nieces, your nephews, your kids, your neighbor kids, your neighbors. Educate them on all the facets of things that are, well, different than what they believe. And yeah, it may be, sometimes a little strenuous, but at the same time, we need to try, because otherwise, you just kind of give up, and then it's not any fun anymore. Anyhow, Thomas, great letter. I really appreciated it. A lot of good stuff in there, and I appreciated being able to comment on it. Thank you very much. Dark Bulb sent me something over on Twitter that comes out of the Shave Den. And this is a Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals. Now, this is good because, well, this podcast will go out on Thanksgiving. And so these are all active deals that are going on right now for 2014 Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals. So if you listen to this over the weekend, you still will have a shot at this. And so take a listen and check out these deals. This is a pretty long list, so I will read them off. Okay. Barrister and Man, there's a Cyber Monday sale. Selected items will be 15% off and new goodies as a surprise. How about Country Club for Men from Beer Soap Brewing Company, a 15% discount on all their aftershave products on Black Friday. Dapper Dragon offering 20% off everything on their Etsy site starting $11.29. Forest Bear, 30% off all products from Friday through Monday, 12/1. With the credit code, or the CC Black Friday, all in capital letters, one word, no spaces. Additionally, Each day, select items will be up to 70% off. Ginger Nuts Shaving. Use code BLACKFRIDAY, again, all caps, no spaces, and get 15% off everything. Code is active as of today. Knockout Shave, currently having a 15% discount on all items. Sale ends November 29th. Maggard Razors, deal. $5 off 35 coupon. Code 5November35, good between 11:25 and 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 11:29. Starting 12 p.m. on 12/29, 60 individual products will go on sale until midnight. These sale items can be found at Maggard Razor's Black Friday specials. Please note, some of the items listed do not reflect their sale price yet. Also, additional promotions will happen on Cyber Monday, which is December 1st, and can be found on the homepage. Men Essentials is having a week-long sale on a number of products. Check their site for details. Sale is going on from November 26th through December 1st. Rebels Refinery will have a Black Friday sale. Details to come. Reef Point Soaps offering 20% off the entire stock of 4-ounce tins of shaving soap. Additionally, free shipping will apply for orders over $50 instead of the normal $75. Siphon Glat, 3 deals going on. Go on their Facebook page and post for a chance to win a free soap, Thanksgiving. Get a free soap or cream in any scent when you buy a razor or brush all of November, and LE number 1 will be 50% off on Cyber Monday only. Shannon's Soap, 15% off shaving soap tins and shampoo bars. Potentially deals on bath bars too. New scents might also be introduced. Discount valid Black Friday through Cyber Monday. Soap Commander, Saturday through Monday, 15% off the entire website. Order more than $100 and receive a free gift. Also, new releases. Winter scent release, launch of seasonal scent crew. St. James of London will be having a Black Friday sale. Details to be added later. Sterling Soap also have a weekend-long sale. Code and details to follow. The Strop Shop will have a Black Friday through Cyber Monday deals running from November 28th through December 1st. Special kits with limited quantities. Get there early. Tiki Bar Soap. Details, spend $75 and get a $25 off, $50 code for the month of January. Tri-Blade. Razor blade sample packs that are normally at a 10% discount will on Friday be at a 25% discount. No code needed. WSP have a few Black Friday deals going on and lasting all week. Buy 2 rustic shaving soaps, get 1 free. 25% off El Grande razors and tobacco and mahogany soaps at 30% off. So I will go ahead and link to this post that is up on the Shave Den, and it'll be good stuff. But if you're looking for stuff that's out there in the shaving community, this would be the weekend to go ahead and think about getting it, because there are some great deals going on out there. So Dark Bulb, thank you for bringing that to my attention so that I could, well, bring it to everybody else. All right, so the soap that I have been using for the last week has been Latosha Cream. Now, Latosha Cream, it's a big tube. Oh my gosh, it's a huge tube of cream. And it's got a kind of a nice, clean, but geez, what's the word I'm looking for? It is the herbal type scent that kind of like Spike has to a certain extent. It reminds me just a little bit of, well, Spike. It's not the same, of course, but it reminds me a little bit of it. Now, the performance, first off, it's a cream. So, I've been able to lather it with my Samog bore brushes and with my Plisson synthetic brushes, and it does great no matter what I use. And in fact, one day I used it I think I was using my Plisson in the shower, and this thing created so much. Well, first off, it was so hydrated from the atmosphere in the shower that I really didn't need to add any extra water to it, and it was really kind of special because it was just this real thick, luxurious soap, and it was or lather, and it was really, really nice. I really enjoyed it. It was just it was almost too much. If that makes sense. There was almost too much lather there. It was, you get to a point where it's kind of like, well, I hate flushing it down the drain, and it's kind of a waste. But at the same time, it was, really good stuff. So, very fragrant, very nice, no issues, good cushion, good glide. And the face feel that it leaves is really, really rather spectacular. It's very nice. It may not be as as slick an aftershave or an after shave feel as the tallow based soaps, but it really, really does a nice job. So the Latosha that I've been using is made in Spain, and it's really been nice. It's very moisturizing. It's got a very nice scent. It comes out of the tube. It's white, and it's not as thick as most creams. It's almost halfway between a cream and a balm consistency almost. It's a lot of creams like some of the like Palmolive or Spike or something like that, or even the Old Spice, they come out fairly thicker, and this is more almost lotiony in consistency, and if you and so I found I wasn't using quite as much water, because I didn't need to. And it gave an excellent shave, excellent lather, good feel, very moisturizing. It was really, really nice. I really thoroughly enjoyed the scent of it as well. Good stuff. Now, you do want to make sure if you leave it on, it does have a tendency to get just a little bit sticky. So you want to make sure that you rinse it off. That was one of the things that I noticed, is that if I cleaned up everything else and didn't rinse it off my face, that where it was on my face, it was just a little bit sticky, and it rinsed off just fine. I mean, there's not a lasting effect, but it was very noticeable when it happened. But good sense, and if you don't use an aftershave, the scent kind of stays with you a little bit, which is it's kind of nice. I really kind of enjoyed that. So anyhow, that's what I've been using. Again, the tube is huge. It's 150 milliliters in the tube. Big red thing. I mean, it's like a big tube of toothpaste in size. I mean, it's huge, and it's about $10, and so really enjoyed this stuff. It's been nice. So last week I was talking about some of the fact that when I was stropping my straight razors, that I would use my old strop instead of my new strop. My new strop being my really nice black leather strop that I bought from Chris Bailey, and so I made an effort and on purpose. Used my black strop. In fact, my old strop, the belt leather one, is sitting here in my office. Just my studio. It's sitting here, where I left it from when I was talking about it last week, and I did that on purpose. I didn't want to put it back because I was forcing myself to use, my new one. And as I was using my new one, I noticed something. And what I noticed was that there was a couple of places on my Newton straight razor that instead of when you strop, every time I would strop the black leather, there would be like a dark mark on the edge of the blade. And I got to looking at this, and finally I brought it in here, and I took out my one of my jeweler's loops and took a look at it, and it's a 10 power loop, and there is a nick in my blade. And what was happening is that nick was causing, instead of pressing the leather down flat, it was actually, some of it was kind of scraping up, and I was getting just pieces of leather stuck on my blade. So, as I was looking at my straight razor, and there is a very small, and when I say small, we're talking about maybe 1/10 of a millimeter. And in fact, I actually have a jeweler's loop that has a scale in it that is designed for very close measurements. So hold on a minute. Okay. So after rooting around, let me look at this thing and see if I can. There it is. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're probably talking 1/10 of a millimeter. It's got a nick or something on it. And it's not big. It's like 1/10 of a millimeter deep. But when I strop it, it does in fact pick up parts of the leather. So, I don't know if I need to send it out to get it rehoned or what. I've never dropped it. I don't know if the metal itself is brittle, and that just happens as you use it. So then I got looking at my little gold dollar Chinese razor. And it's got a bunch of them in it. I looked at that and went, oh my God. But so here's my question, and maybe, someone out there who hones or who restores razors or knows more about straight razors than I do can help me out on this one. The nicks and things that establish themselves within upon the edge of a straight razor, is that just normal wear and tear? Is that where you hook skin and as you pull up it snaps off a piece of blade? I mean, what causes that? Like I said, I haven't dropped these things. I've used them gently. I've treated the edge with the utmost of respect. Now, every time I set down my razors, when I come back the next day, they're in exactly the same spot, so I don't think anybody else is moving them or abusing them or anything like that. They're out of the way, so they're not going to get bumped or damaged. But I'm getting nicks in my straight razors, and I'm curious because I didn't expect that. I expected that edge to be fine. Now, they still shave just fine. I don't have any problems really with shaving. And in fact, I'm actually getting better at it. It's I'm able to get under my neck with a little bit more accuracy, I guess is the best word. And give myself a pretty reasonable shave. And it stays well shaved for a little bit longer than my double edge does, and even a little bit longer than my single edge razors do. So from that aspect, I really enjoy it. So I'm heading slowly down to the dark side of the straight razors, and it's it's one of those things. I knew I was going to get there eventually. I was hoping anyhow I would get there eventually. So don't get me wrong, I still enjoy my my double edged and my single edged razors, as well as my injectors, of course. And I still thoroughly enjoy them, but every now and then I will wander off the reservation into the land of the straight razor. So anyhow, if anybody can help me out and let me know where all those nicks are coming from on the edge of my blade. Okay, I have been teasing this for a while, and we're ready to make an announcement. First off, what is it? All right, I have told you that there's something that you can buy, that you can get your hands on, that will help support the Brush and Soap and Blade podcast. Okay, I told you that when you found out what it was, that you would be excited. And what it is a shaving brush. It's not just any shaving brush, because this shaving brush is made by none other than Nathan Clark. Now, if you've been around Facebook at all, you will recognize Nathan Clark as a brush maker extraordinaire within our community who does an absolutely excellent job at making some fantastic brushes. Well, he came to me a while ago and he said, "Hey, I've got an idea. I want to make up a special brush specifically for the show with some of the proceeds going to the show." So I will throw up some pictures and we'll put that up so that you can get to it. And I'll have a link in the show notes and on the blog and everything else. So the way this is going to work is, first off, this brush is a beautiful, beautiful brush, and it is, well, a little bit different because it is made with a mixture of Osage orange and black resin. Now, there's and it's a beautiful pattern on this brush. It's almost like a cross pattern down at the bottom, but it's a little bit unique and different, and so it's gorgeous. It's beautifully turned, and the knots, there are actually 2 knots that are available. There is a 2-band high mountain white badger knot. And then there's also a 4th generation synthetic fiber knot, which is very, very soft. And so what we're doing on these things, both knots are set to 50 millimeters. What we're doing on these things is we are taking pre-orders for them. And yeah, it's almost kind of like a Kickstarter campaign to a certain extent. But what we're doing is we're taking orders on these things. You have until January 31st to order. Now, if you go to the website that I'm going to provide a link to, the price for this is being shown as $85.95. However, if you use the voucher BSB 2015, BSB in lowercase letters, no spaces, 2015, so all one word, BSB 2015 at the checkout, you get a price drop. Now, the price drop that you end up getting ends up a brush being manufactured by none other than Nathan Clark, is bumped down to $69 with free shipping. Now, most of Nathan's brushes sell for in the $75 to $90 range. And so to be able to get a brush like that, which is a beautiful, beautiful handmade brush, to be able to get a brush like that for the fabulous and in fact almost outrageous price of $69 is really a deal. Now, for every brush that is bought, a portion of the proceeds goes to the Brush and Soap and Blade podcast to help support the podcast for internet hosting and things like that. And so it's a great deal for you. It's a great deal for me. And Nathan gets something out of it too. So hopefully, you will see that for all of us, this is a win-win-win. And that's, I've told you before, I don't want sponsors. Well, this isn't really a sponsor. This is a voluntary association of like-minded people who want to do something, that want to support something. Now, if you don't want to support the show and you don't want to get the discount, that's fine too. You can buy this brush. It is labeled on the website as the 2015 Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast Brush. And if you don't want to use the discount code, it's $85.95. If you use the discount code, it's $69.95. So if it was me and I like the brush, I'd be using the discount code BSB 2015. Anyhow, I will put pictures up to this thing, and I'll even link to a small video of it. It is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful brush, and at $69.95, it's a steal. It really is. Like I said, when I first found out about it and saw this thing, I was like, okay. When you find out what it is, you're going to be excited. When you find out who's making it, you're going to be stoked, because Nathan makes some absolutely fabulous and beautiful brushes that he has teased us with by putting pictures up all over the place. And, you look at it and you go, what? Somebody got it already. So, anyhow, that's what we're doing. The 2015 Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast Brush, Osage Orange and Black Resin, with two styles of knots, 24 millimeter with a 50 millimeter loft, either the badger hair or synthetic, with the code BSB 2015 $69.95. And if you place your order now, you have between now and January 31st to place the order. And Nathan will make them in the month of February, and they will ship out February 25th. So we're trying to see how many we can get, because if we get up to 30 brushes that are sold, we're going to get them engraved. So that's kind of our goal, is to see how many we can get sold, and if we can get them engraved, well, that would be really, really cool. So if you'd like to do something to help out the podcast, here's your opportunity, and you get a brush in the bargain. All right, so I have had a couple of people ask me, and in fact, a letter that I read earlier asked specifically how I podcast. What do I use? How did I do it, etc., etc. Okay. So, how did I start out? I started out with nothing more than a laptop computer and a microphone. Now, the microphone that I started out with was a Radio Shack. Now, there are two kinds of microphones. There's a dynamic microphone, and then there is a condenser microphone. A condenser microphone, you can buy them, but for something like this, I wouldn't have one. And the reason is because they pick up all the sound from everywhere. The dynamic microphone, on the other hand, is very much oriented toward just picking up the speaker and not much noise from behind, if you will. For example, if I can sit here and I'll click my fingers at the microphone, and you can probably hear that, and then I'll click my fingers behind the microphone, and you probably can't hear that very well, because there's this thing called rejection. Now, if this was a condenser microphone, it wouldn't matter where I snap my fingers, you would be able to hear it very clearly from everywhere, which also means you get a lot of room noise and everything else. Whether you're clicking on a mouse or dropping something on the table or moving something or whatever, you would hear it all, which is really annoying. So the microphone that I have is the same one that I've always had. It is a microphone, dynamic microphone that I picked up at Radio Shack for a whopping $49.95. And the microphone that I picked up, I think I picked up a cable. It's got an XLR plug on the back of it, which is the 3-pin plug. And I got a cable that goes from XLR into a an 1/8 of an inch stereo plug that I plugged into the mic jack on the computer. Now, I've got a laptop. It's got a mic jack. Some of the new computers, because I've been looking at a new computer, some of the new ones don't have mic jacks. They don't have mic in. They don't have headphones, or they may have headphones but no mic in. And the way that you can do that is either to get an adapter for the mic to go into a USB plug, or you can get an external sound card. A good one would be a Focusrite, and I have one sitting here because I use it for something else. It's a Focusrite Scarlett 212, and those are real good for something like this. But you've got to get the sound from the microphone into the computer. Now, into the computer. All right, what program do I use? Personally, I use Audacity. It's free, and that's one of the reasons that I use it. I like things that are free, open source. It's also fairly simple to use. It has a lot of features. I don't use hardly any of them, but it does have a lot of features. And so you can actually, if you want to, you can actually take a set of the earbuds with the microphone for your phone, for example, plug that in the computer, and as long as you hold that microphone so it doesn't rub on your clothing, you can actually use that. It won't sound great, but you can do it. And so you don't need to spend a lot of money on a microphone. There are a lot of microphones out there that you could get that would work very, very well, that would actually go into a USB plug. They're called USB microphones. And recording straight into Audacity. Now, when I first started, that's how I did it. That's how I did my first couple of episodes. And what I noticed in doing that was there were certain times that I would turn the program Audacity on to record, and I would speak for a little bit, and it was probably about 5 seconds in, and there would be this strange noise, almost like the computer was spooling up or something, and then it would quiet down. And if I was speaking during that time, there would be this background noise that I couldn't get rid of. So what I learned to do was I would hit the record button, count to 5, and then start speaking, and then I just cut that part out later. And that worked okay. And you could probably do a whole podcast on that for many, many episodes. But I found that just, obnoxious. So I got on eBay, and I bought myself a portable digital recorder, a little Tascam unit. And so my microphone would then go into my digital recorder, and I would record everything, all the segments of the show, into the digital recorder. And in fact, that's how I do it today. I'll record it into the digital recorder, and then I will transfer it from the digital recorder onto the hard drive, and then play around with it on Audacity and do it that way. Now, the nice thing about the digital recorder is that it is meant to do one thing, and that is record digital audio. So in this case, I have one, and it's when I first got it, it had a little mic jack, and I would plug the microphone into the mic jack, and away we would go. And so it gives very clean, noise-free recordings. Now, I run mine on battery power because that way I don't have any AC interference, no AC hum or anything like that. And so I find that it gives me very, very clean audio. I don't have a lot of stuff in the background that I have to try to figure out how to get rid of later. And then I'll transfer it in and play around with it into Audacity and do it that way. And I did that for many, many, many episodes. And then finally I got myself a mixer. I'd always wanted a mixer. And the mixer that I have is a little Mackie 803 VLZ, or it's an 802, I guess, VLZ3. And it is a mixer, and so my microphone is now going from the microphone to the mixer, and then from there into the digital recorder. And this way, with the mixer, I can do interviews because I can do what's called mix minus, and so I can do Skype over the internet and pull all of that information, all of that audio into my digital recorder, where the show essentially gets recorded. Now, do you need all this stuff? No. You really don't, but that's kind of how it has evolved over the year or so, and so from there, again, it goes into Audacity, and then once I have it the way I want it in Audacity, I will convert it into an MP3 file. Now, I have learned along the way. My first ones, they were recorded in stereo. And they were taking huge amounts of space. As when the MP3 got finished, I was looking at 75 megabytes or so. Well, of course, it was in stereo. And my bit rate was set too high. And so that would work real good if it was music, but it's not. It's just me talking. So I've since bumped that down into mono and lowered my bit rate just a bit. Doesn't affect the quality at all. And the size of my MP3 files are a lot smaller, which makes it more convenient. Now, the next thing that you do is once you get your MP3 made, okay, then you have to get it out there. You have to get it into iTunes and or somewhere that somebody can hear it. Now, when I first started, the first thing that I did was I just put it on my my blog site. That was the only place to get it, was the blog site when I first started out, because I wanted to have a few episodes under my belt before I submitted it to iTunes. Now, when you submit to iTunes, or when you put your podcast out there, you have a couple of choices. And essentially what you need is a podcast provider. And this is a place where you can put your podcast, where you can upload your MP3 so that the RSS feeds for Stitcher, for iTunes, for, the links from your own website, for, from your blog, all go to this podcast provider. Now, when I first started, and for about the first year, as a matter of fact, my podcast provider was Podcast Garden, that offered, it started off as a free service, and then they said, well, if you load on a weekly basis, then we're going to have to charge you. And they charged me like $20 a year, which is peanuts. And I said, okay, because at the time I was getting very, very good service from them. It worked very well. It worked very well, and from that location, I could submit to iTunes, and so I could then have my podcast in iTunes from that podcast provider. Okay, so that's what I did. Now the problem with it is that unbeknownst to me, when you first start out, especially in something very niche market like, the wet shaving community, does anybody really think that, oh my gosh, one day I'm going to have all these listeners and I'm going to have, all these downloads every month and it's just going to be huge? No. You're thinking, okay, I may get, a couple of people will listen and that would be great, and I'll just keep doing it because this is fun and good stuff, right? Well, then you get big, and and then all of a sudden your podcast host that is only, used to dealing with small podcasts that, I was looking at some of the sites for some of the other podcasters that were on Podcast Garden, and there'd be like one show from 40 years ago. And they, the guys did like one or two shows and then they quit. There was one, I think the most prolific was, I think he had like 15 shows, but they were stretched out over the course of almost a year. Now, I was doing a weekly show every single week, and I was getting huge numbers of people that were downloading this thing. And so when I looked at it, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm their biggest draw right now, and I can't get their attention because I was having difficulties and they weren't responding at all. And I understand they're a small company. They're not they don't have a huge staff or anything like that. They're just trying to make it, and with someone like me coming along and getting popular, it becomes one of these things where, okay, how do they deal with that? I understand that. It's frustrating, but at least I understand it. So I ended up separating from them, and I went over to a company called Libsyn. Now, Libsyn is Liberated Syndication, and they cost a little bit, but that's okay. They're very reliable, and I can get a hold of people over there, and they have great stats and everything else. Because before with Podcast Garden, when I first started out, I had no idea how many people were listening. I couldn't tell. I had no statistics. I didn't know how many downloads were being done. When they first came out with stats, they weren't reliable. It's just, I didn't believe them all the time. It was crazy. And so I just got to the point where I didn't care about stats. It's just nothing that I really looked at. It was just kind of the habit of it. So it was right at the worst possible time. It was right at my 1-year anniversary that I separated my relationship with Podcast Garden and went over to Libsyn and have carried on with Libsyn ever since. So the moral of that whole story is when you start a podcast, and if you're interested in it, I thoroughly encourage you, and write me a letter and we'll talk about more of this stuff offline. And I'll give you any advice that I can and answer as many questions as I can, because, this is kind of a, this is a shaving podcast. I don't want to turn it into a podcast. It's a shaving podcast. But I've had enough people ask me that I figured I'd go ahead and put it in here. The question that you have to ask yourself if you're going to do a podcast is, who is going to host it? Where are you going to put it? Now, that's the nice thing about YouTube. And quite honestly, if you are just starting out and trying to figure out if there's a market, if somebody cares or whatever, I would almost suggest that you go to YouTube first, even if you do just an audio program, because it doesn't cost you anything. That's the nice thing about YouTube. There is no cost to you. As a podcaster, it costs me to put my shows out there so that they'll be available to iTunes and to Stitcher and, eventually, to you guys. And that's one of the reasons that the idea of the 2015 Brush and Soap and Blade podcast brush being done by Nathan, it was, enticing. It's a good idea. It will help out because it does cost me. Now, it's not a big deal. I haven't taken sponsors because, quite honestly, it's a hobby. But if somebody's starting out, that's something to consider. If you are, you run the possibility, if you're going to end up with a successful podcast, then you have the issue of, okay, do I start off first with a well-known paid-for podcast host so that in case I get successful, everything will be okay? Or do you start off with something like YouTube or SoundCloud or something like that, and then you go to a podcast host later if you start finding that you're successful? That's the question, and I can't answer that for you. I would suggest that you seriously consider going to YouTube, especially if you want to do videos as well, or SoundCloud. It's just that's where I would go at this point. I'm much more of an audio guy than I am a video guy. So for me, YouTube at the time didn't really have any appeal. Now, since I've done a few YouTube videos and transferred some of my podcasts over to YouTube, and it's like, yeah, that works well. But that's kind of how I got here. Some of the equipment that I use, some of the questions that I have. Now, again, if you go to YouTube, I don't think you can get into iTunes from YouTube or from SoundCloud. So the only way to get into iTunes is to have a podcast host that will create an RSS feed for you that you can then submit into iTunes. But there's a lot of tutorials and stuff like that on how to do it. And like I said, if you have any questions, send me an email, and we will talk about this stuff offline, and I'll help you any way that I can, because to me, like I said last week, the more the merrier. There are as many opinions about wet shaving and things to talk about wet shaving as there are people doing it. Because we're all different. We all have different likes, dislike, techniques, flavors, flares, whatever. And that's what makes this so much fun, because I may not do it the same way as you do, but I get the same, I get enjoyment out of it just like you do. And I may learn something when I find out, well, you used this technique, or you use this soap, or you lathered like this, or from a podcast standpoint, you podcasted like this, whereas I did it this way. And so anybody that tells you there's only one way to do this, baloney. There's not. There's many ways to skin many of these cats, and I can give you my opinion. My opinion is not the Bible, that's for sure. It's not the be-all, end-all, just like my opinion on shaving is not the be-all, end-all. I'm still learning. I mean, I don't even know why the nicks show up in my straight razors. It's just a wonder. But, like I say on my blog, this is a journey. And part of that journey, and part of the reasons that I do the podcast, is to share that journey with you. And so on this Thanksgiving Day, when this is going out, 2014, I am thankful. I am so very thankful that you guys are out there and that you have allowed me to share my journey with you. And more importantly, at least to me, is that some of you have allowed me to share your journey with you and with everybody else. So thank you for being there. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Spend the time with your friends, with your family. Do yourself a favor and tell your loved ones that you do in fact love them, because sometimes we forget to do that. And even if you argue with them, at the end of the night, when they're leaving or when they first show up, sometime during the event that you're seeing them, give them a hug, shake their hand, pull them aside and quietly say, you know what? I love you. I mean it. That's what makes Thanksgiving special. Hope you enjoy yours too. Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at brushandsoapandblade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at BrushnBlade. You can also visit us at our blog, brushandsoapandblade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.